Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Evelyn Whitaker. If you're joining us for the first time, we're all about those classic whodunits that keep you guessing late into the night. Today, we have a special treat, a brand new Hercule Poirot mystery in the timeless style of Agatha Christie. Titled Blood on the Glass Canopy, this is a locked room puzzle that'll have you pondering clues right alongside the great detective himself. Settle in with a cup of tea, because this is a long one. Over 90 minutes of intrigue, twists, and that satisfying Christie resolution. We'll take it slow, chapter by chapter, so you can really immerse yourself. Chapter 1. Arrival at Harrington Manor. In the golden haze of an autumn afternoon in 1927, the English countryside unfolded like a tapestry of secrets, its rolling hills cloaked in mist, and its ancient oaks whispering tales of forgotten intrigues. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his impeccably waxed moustache and egg-shaped head, sat comfortably in a first-class carriage. The rhythmic clatter of the train a soothing backdrop to his thoughts. His sharp eyes, bright as polished jet, darted to the letter in his gloved hand. An elegant missive penned on embossed stationery, its words both urgent and cryptic. Mon cher Poirot, it read, your unique grey cells are needed at Harrington Manor for a matter of utmost delicacy. Join us for the weekend. Discretion is paramount. Yours, Lord Reginald Harrington. Poirot folded the letter with precision, his mind already turning over the possibilities. Lord Harrington, a wealthy industrialist whose fortune stemmed from exotic imports, teas, silks, and rare botanicals from the Far East, was not a man to issue such invitations lightly. Poirot adjusted his patent leather shoes, polished to a mirror shine, and smoothed his pinstriped suit. A matter of delicacy indeed. He suspected it was more than a trifling social squabble. The word discretion hinted at scandal, perhaps danger. As the train slowed at a rural station, a brisk wind carried the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. A chauffeur in a smart navy uniform awaited, tipping his cap deferentially. Mr. Poirot, Lord Harrington sends his regards. The manor's but a short drive, sir. The car, a gleaming Rolls-Royce, wound through narrow lanes flanked by hedgerows, the countryside unfolding in shades of amber and crimson. Poirot's keen gaze took in every detail. The thatched cottages huddled against the chill, the distant church spire piercing the fog. And, as they neared their destination, the imposing silhouette of Harrington Manor. The Georgian estate sprawled across the landscape, its ivy-clad stone walls exuding both grandeur and a faint air of melancholy. Its windows gleamed like watchful eyes, but what truly captured Poirot's attention was the magnificent glass conservatory attached to the east wing. Its domed canopy, a marvel of modern engineering, shimmered like a crystal crown under the waning sun, its panes catching the light in a kaleidoscope of reflections. This conservatory, Poirot had learned, was Lord Harrington's pride, a sealed sanctuary housing his collection of tropical orchids and rare ferns, imported at great expense. The structure was a fortress of glass and iron, its doors locked with a single key held by Harrington himself, its canopy reinforced to withstand storms, with no windows that opened and no apparent entry save the heavy oak door connecting it to the manor's library. A curious place, Poirot murmured to himself, for secrets to hide. The car crunched to a halt on the gravel drive, and Poirot was ushered through the manor's grand entrance, where a chandelier cast golden light across a marble foyer. A crackling fire in the drawing-room welcomed him, its warmth a stark contrast to the autumn chill. Lord Reginald Harrington strode forward, a robust man in his early 50s, with a ruddy complexion and a voice that boomed like a cannon. His tweed suit strained slightly at the shoulders, betraying a life of indulgence. "Poirot, delighted you could come. Nasty business brewing, but we'll save that for later. First, meet the family." Lady Amelia Harrington, his wife, glided into the room with the grace of a swan but the eyes of a hawk. 10 years younger than her husband, her auburn hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and her silk gown whispered of Paris fashion. Yet her smile was strained, her handshake cool. "Charmed, Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice smooth, but her gaze flickering with unease. Poirot noted the whispers of marital discord, rumours that Harrington's wandering eye had strayed to a London actress, while Amelia's own inheritance, tied to the estate, dwindled under his reckless investments. A motive, perhaps, for resentment. Next came Mr. Victor Black, Harrington's business partner in their import empire. A lean man with sharp features and a calculating stare, his tailored suit and gold pocket watch spoke of ambition. He shook Poirot's hand with a grip too firm, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Heard much about you, Poirot. Reginald's lucky to have you." Poirot's grey cells hummed. Black's recent dispute with Harrington over company shares was no secret. If Harrington were out of the picture, Black stood to gain control of the lucrative trade routes. A dangerous ambition. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, Harrington's orphaned niece, bounded in with the energy of youth. At 22, her auburn curls bounced as she moved, and her emerald eyes sparkled with a mix of mischief and defiance. "Uncle speaks so highly of you, Monsieur Poirot," she exclaimed, her warmth genuine, but her hands twisting nervously. Poirot knew her story. Raised by Harrington after her parents' death, she was set to inherit a portion of the estate. But recent clashes over her scandalous affair with a penniless artist, an affair Harrington threatened to end by cutting her from his will, gave her ample reason to harbour ill will. Dr. Harold Langley, the family physician and an old friend of Harrington's, entered next. A bespectacled man in his mid-40s, his tweed jacket was slightly frayed, and his demeanour carried a quiet bitterness. He nodded politely, but his eyes darted to Harrington with a flash of resentment. Poirot recalled the gossip. Langley's unpaid medical bills for treating the family, coupled with Harrington's refusal to grant him a loan for a private practice, had soured their friendship. A motive rooted in financial desperation, perhaps. Finally, the butler, Mr. Edmund Simmons, appeared with a silver tea tray, his movements precise, and his face a mask of stoic professionalism. His silver hair and lined features spoke of decades of service, yet his eyes held a quiet intensity. Poirot noted the whispers. Simmons had been promised a generous pension, but Harrington had reneged, leaving the aging butler facing a future of poverty. Loyalty stretched thin could snap into betrayal. As tea was poured, Poirot's gaze drifted to the window, where a shadowy figure moved in the gardens. The gardener, Mr. Thorne, a reclusive man responsible for the conservatory's exotic blooms. Thorne was not invited to tea, an outsider to the inner circle, but Poirot filed his presence away for later scrutiny. The drawing-room conversation was polite but laced with tension. Lady Amelia spoke of the conservatory's latest addition, a blood-red orchid from Borneo, her voice tight as she avoided her husband's gaze. Black steered the talk to business, his tone clipped. "Reginald, we must finalize those contracts soon." Evelyn laughed too loudly at a jest, drawing a sharp look from her uncle. Dr. Langley sipped his tea in silence, his fingers drumming on the armrest. Simmons moved like a ghost, refilling cups with mechanical precision. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, Harrington pulled Poirot aside near the fireplace. His voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's about anonymous letters, Poirot, threatening my life. Vague, but venomous. Your greed will be your end. That sort of thing. I suspect someone in this very room." He glanced at the gathered company, his ruddy face paling slightly. "I need your eyes, your mind, to uncover the truth before it's too late." Poirot nodded, his expression serene, but his mind racing. Anonymous letters were a classic gambit, perhaps genuine, perhaps a red herring to sow discord. "Rest assured, my lord, Hercule Poirot shall observe all. The little grey cells, they are already at work." Before more could be said, Simmons announced dinner, and the group moved to the dining room. Poirot lingered a moment, his gaze returning to the glass conservatory visible through the library's French doors. Its canopy glowed faintly under the rising moon, a silent sentinel guarding its secrets. Something about its impenetrable design stirred his instincts. An impossible crime was brewing, and the stage was set. Chapter 2. Shadows over Dinner. The dining room at Harrington Manor was a vision of opulence, a testament to Lord Reginald Harrington's wealth and taste. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars, casting prisms of light across a mahogany table, polished to a mirror sheen. Silver candelabras flickered, their flames dancing in the draughts that slipped through the manor's ancient walls. Beyond the tall French windows, the glass conservatory loomed, its domed canopy a ghostly silhouette against the twilight sky, its panes reflecting the moon like a fractured mirror. Inside that sealed fortress of glass and iron, Harrington's prized tropical orchids and ferns thrived, locked away from the world. Accessible only through a single bolted oak door from the library, with the key held solely by the Lord himself. Hercule Poirot, seated at the table's far end, observed the gathered company with his piercing jet-black eyes. His meticulously waxed moustache twitched slightly as he sipped his claret, his mind cataloguing every gesture, every glance. The air was thick with unspoken tensions, a prelude to the tragedy he sensed was imminent. Lord Harrington presided at the head of the table, his ruddy face flushed with wine and bravado, his booming voice filling the room as he recounted the acquisition of his latest treasure. A blood-red orchid from Borneo, housed in the conservatory. "A marvel, Poirot," he declared, raising his glass. "Petals like fresh blood, delicate as a lady's glove, worth a small fortune and locked tighter than the Bank of England." Poirot inclined his head, his tone mild but probing. "This conservatory, my lord, it is truly secure. No windows, no other doors." Harrington laughed, a hearty sound that masked unease. "Impenetrable, my dear man. The canopy's reinforced glass, thicker than a ship's hull. The doors bolted from the inside at night. Only I have the key. No thief, no storm could breach it. My orchids are safer than the crown jewels." The other guests arranged around the table, like players in a carefully staged drama, betrayed their own secrets in fleeting glances. Lady Amelia Harrington, elegant in a sapphire gown that complemented her auburn chignon, sat to her husband's right, her smile as brittle as the crystal goblet she clutched. Her cool detachment spoke volumes. Poirot recalled the whispers of her strained marriage, fueled by Harrington's rumoured dalliance with a London actress, and her own dwindling inheritance siphoned by his risky ventures. She caught Poirot's gaze and looked away, her fingers tightening around her glass, a motive cloaked in poise. Mr. Victor Black, the sharp-featured business partner, sat opposite, his lean frame taut with ambition. His gold pocket watch gleamed as he toyed with it, his eyes darting to Harrington with a predator's focus. The recent dispute over company shares, Black's push for control of their Far Eastern trade routes, hung unspoken between them. "Reginald," Black interjected smoothly, cutting through Harrington's orchid tale. "Perhaps we should discuss those contracts after dinner. Time is money, after all." His smile was a blade, and Poirot noted the flicker of irritation in Harrington's eyes. Black's motive was clear. With Harrington gone, the empire would be his. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the vivacious niece, sat to Poirot's left, her auburn curls catching the candlelight. At 22, her laughter rang a touch too bright, her emerald eyes darting nervously to her uncle. She wore a modern beaded dress that clashed with the manor's staid elegance, a symbol of her rebellion. Poirot knew her motive. Harrington's threat to disinherit her over her scandalous affair with a penniless artist. "Uncle, must we talk business?" she said, her voice teasing but edged. "Tell Monsieur Poirot about your orchids instead." Harrington's frown deepened, and Evelyn's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine. A young woman with much to lose. Dr. Harold Langley, the family physician, sat quietly, his bespectacled face half-shadowed. His frayed tweed jacket contrasted with the table's splendour, and his fingers drummed a restless rhythm on his napkin. Poirot recalled the gossip. Langley's unpaid bills for treating the family, coupled with Harrington's refusal to fund his private practice, had bred resentment. "The orchids are remarkable," Langley said, his voice flat, but delicate. "One wrong move, and they wither." His eyes met Harrington's briefly, a spark of bitterness flaring, a motive rooted in financial ruin. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, moved silently around the table, his silver hair gleaming under the chandelier as he served the roast pheasant with practiced precision. His face was an impassive mask, but Poirot caught the tightness in his jaw. Simmons's motive was whispered in the servants' quarters. Years of loyal service, promised a pension, only for Harrington to renege, leaving the aging butler facing destitution. As Simmons poured claret, his hand brushed the tablecloth, a fleeting tremor, unnoticed by all but Poirot. Through the French windows, Poirot glimpsed a shadowy figure in the gardens, the gardener, Mr. Thorne, tending the estate's grounds. Thorne, a reclusive man responsible for the conservatory's plants, was not at the table, but Poirot noted his presence near the glass structure earlier. A man of the soil, perhaps harbouring his own grudges, but for now, an enigma. As the meal progressed, cracks in the facade widened. Evelyn argued softly with her uncle about her allowance, her voice rising. "You're being unreasonable, uncle. I'm not a child." Harrington's face reddened, his fork clattering. "You'll learn gratitude, girl, or you'll get nothing." The table fell silent, forks poised mid-air. Lady Amelia excused herself abruptly, claiming a headache, her sapphire gown whispering as she left. Dr. Langley followed, murmuring about a sedative, his departure too swift for Poirot's liking. Black seized the moment, leaning toward Harrington. "Those shares, Reginald, let's settle it tonight." His tone was velvet over steel, and Harrington waved him off, irritation flaring. "After dinner, Victor, not now." Poirot sipped his wine, his mind cataloguing the exchanges. The anonymous letters Harrington mentioned earlier, threatening his life with phrases like, "Your greed will be your end," loomed in his thoughts. Were they genuine, penned by one of these tense figures, or a clever red herring to sow discord? He noted Simmons lingering near the French windows, exchanging a brief glance with Thorne outside, the gardener's silhouette vanishing into the dusk. A coincidence, or something more? As coffee was served, the atmosphere grew heavier, the candlelight casting long shadows that seemed to writhe like spectres. Poirot's gaze returned to the conservatory, its glass canopy now a dark void beyond the windows. Harrington's boast of its impenetrability echoed in his mind, but Poirot knew that no fortress was truly secure, not when human passions were involved. The letters, the motives, the glances, all were threads in a tapestry he would soon unravel. Dinner ended with strained pleasantries, the guests retiring to their rooms. Poirot lingered in the dining room, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. The conservatory's locked door, the single key, the sealed canopy. It was a puzzle designed for his little grey cells. He sensed the stage was set for something darker, something imminent. As he rose to retire, a distant creak from the library caught his ear. The door to the conservatory, perhaps. He filed it away, his instincts humming. Chapter 3. The Crime Discovered. The first light of dawn broke over Harrington Manor on that fateful morning in October 1927, painting the English countryside in hues of pale gold and silver. The mist clung to the rolling hills, wrapping the estate's ivy-clad walls in a ghostly embrace. The glass conservatory, that architectural marvel with its domed canopy of reinforced panes, stood silent, its reflections distorted by the morning dew. Inside, Lord Reginald Harrington's prized orchids and ferns basked in their sealed sanctuary, accessible only through the heavy oak door from the library. Bolted each night with a key he alone possessed. Or so it had seemed. The tranquillity shattered with a scream that tore through the manor like a blade. It was Lady Amelia Harrington, stumbling from the conservatory's entrance, her silk nightgown damp with dew, and her auburn hair loosened from its chignon. Her face was ashen, her eyes wide with horror. "Reginald! Oh God, he's dead!" she cried, her voice breaking as she clutched the doorframe, her hands trembling violently. The household erupted into chaos. Hercule Poirot, roused from his guest room by the commotion, emerged with his usual impeccable composure, his patent leather shoes clicking on the marble foyer. His egg-shaped head tilted slightly, his jet-black eyes scanning the scene as he adjusted his pinstriped suit. Behind him, the other guests poured from their rooms. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, in a hastily donned dressing-gown, her auburn curls in disarray. Mr. Victor Black, his sharp features taut with alarm. Dr. Harold Langley, spectacles askew, and Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, his silver hair unruffled but his stoic mask faltering. They followed Lady Amelia to the conservatory, where the heavy oak door stood ajar, its bolt inexplicably undone. Inside, a scene of devastation awaited. Lord Reginald Harrington lay sprawled across the flagstone floor, his robust frame crumpled amid shattered clay pots and scattered orchids. Blood pooled beneath him, a stark crimson against the pale stones, seeping from a wound in his chest where an antique dagger, Harrington's own kept in the library, protruded like an accusation. The air was heavy with the scent of earth and iron, and above, the glass canopy loomed, its panes splattered with flecks of blood, untouched and intact, no cracks or breaches visible. Poirot stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "Do not touch anything, mes amis. We must preserve the scene exactly as it is." His little grey cells were already whirring, cataloguing every detail of this impossible crime. The conservatory was a locked room in every sense. The oak door had been bolted from the inside, the key still in the lock. The glass canopy, reinforced and unyielding, showed no signs of tampering, no broken panes, no ladder marks on the exterior. The soft earth of the flower beds bore no footprints, save those of the shattered pots near Harrington's body. How had the killer entered and escaped? It was a puzzle worthy of Poirot's genius. The local inspector, a well-meaning but flustered man named Japp, a nod to Poirot's old acquaintance, arrived shortly, his notepad in hand. "Looks like suicide, Mr. Poirot," he ventured, scratching his head. "No note, mind you, but the door was locked, wasn't it?" Poirot's moustache twitched with disapproval. "No, Inspector, this is no suicide. It is murder. Most ingenious, most impossible. Observe the dagger, the blood, the locked door. We have a paradox to solve." The initial examination revealed chilling details. Dr. Langley, kneeling briefly beside the body under Poirot's watchful eye, estimated death around midnight, based on the body's stiffness. The dagger, a curved blade with an ivory handle, was indeed from the library's display case, its theft unnoticed until now. The blood splatter on the canopy suggested a struggle, yet the absence of footprints or other marks defied logic. A red herring emerged. Near the body, half buried in the soil, was a torn scrap of lace. A handkerchief bearing Evelyn Carlyle's monogram. Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's mine! But I wasn't here!" Poirot's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing, filing the clue away. The handkerchief was too convenient, perhaps planted to mislead. He turned to the suspects, each frozen in their shock, their alibis hastily offered. Lady Amelia claimed she had been in bed, her headache from dinner keeping her there, though no one could verify it. Victor Black, his voice clipped, said he'd been restless, walking the halls due to insomnia, a vague claim that invited scrutiny. Evelyn admitted to a migraine, saying she'd retired early after Dr. Langley gave her a sedative. Langley confirmed this, stating he'd been in his room afterward, though his nervous fidgeting suggested otherwise. Simmons, the butler, insisted he'd been in his quarters in the servants' wing, his tone measured but his eyes guarded. Poirot moved through the conservatory with meticulous care, his gloved hands tracing the edges of the scene. The shattered pots suggested a struggle, but the earth remained undisturbed, save for the immediate vicinity of Harrington's body. The blood on the canopy was puzzling, too high for a simple stab, unless the dagger had been thrown, an unlikely feat in such a confined space. The key in the lock was another enigma. If Harrington had bolted the door himself, how had the killer entered? And if the killer had locked it after, where was the second key? Outside, the gardener, Mr. Thorne, appeared at the conservatory's exterior, his weathered face peering through the glass. "Heard the scream," he muttered, his hands dirt-stained from early work. "Didn't see nothing last night." Poirot noted his presence, but dismissed him for now. Thorne's role was peripheral, though his access to the conservatory's plants raised questions. The anonymous letters Harrington had mentioned the previous evening gnawed at Poirot's mind. "Your greed will be your end," they had warned. Were they the killer's prelude, or a clever distraction? The handkerchief, the unlocked bolt, the blood-flecked canopy, all were threads in a tapestry of deception. Poirot's gaze lingered on the suspects. Lady Amelia, wringing her hands, her motive tied to a crumbling marriage. Black, his ambition barely concealed. Evelyn, her inheritance at stake. Langley, his resentment palpable. Simmons, his loyalty strained to breaking. One of them had breached this impossible room, and Poirot would uncover how. Japp scratching his head again, muttered, "Could have been an outsider, perhaps. A tramp, a thief after those orchids." Poirot shook his head. "No, Inspector. The conservatory is a fortress. This is the work of someone close, someone who knew Harrington's habits, his key, his sanctuary." As the household dispersed, instructed to remain on the estate, Poirot lingered in the conservatory, his eyes tracing the blood-streaked panes above. The morning light filtered through, casting eerie shadows on the flagstones. The crime was fresh, the clues raw, and the puzzle tantalizing. He sensed the killer's arrogance in crafting such an impossible scene, but arrogance was a flaw, and Poirot's little grey cells thrived on flaws. Chapter 4. Poirot takes charge. The morning sun struggled through the heavy mist enveloping Harrington Manor on that fateful October day in 1927, casting a pale, ghostly light across the estate's ivy-clad walls. The glass conservatory, its domed canopy glinting like a frozen lake, stood as a silent monument to the impossible crime that had shaken the household. Lord Reginald Harrington lay dead within, stabbed with his own antique dagger. The door bolted from the inside, the key in the lock, and no trace of entry or exit through the reinforced glass or undisturbed earth. Hercule Poirot, his egg-shaped head tilted and his waxed moustache perfectly symmetrical, stood in the drawing-room, his jet-black eyes surveying the assembled suspects with the precision of a watchmaker. The air was thick with tension, the fire in the hearth doing little to warm the chill of suspicion. Lady Amelia Harrington sat rigidly on a velvet settee, her sapphire gown replaced by sombre black, her auburn hair tightly pinned. Her strained marriage and dwindling inheritance marked her as a suspect, her alibi of a headache unverified. Mr. Victor Black, the business partner, leaned against the mantel, his sharp features taut, his ambition to seize control of Harrington's trade empire a clear motive. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the young niece, fidgeted with her beaded bracelet, her emerald eyes darting nervously, her threatened inheritance and scandalous affair a potent reason for resentment. Dr. Harold Langley, the physician, adjusted his spectacles, his frayed tweed jacket betraying his financial straits, his bitterness over unpaid bills and a rejected loan palpable. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, stood by the door, his silver hair gleaming, his stoic demeanour masking years of unrewarded loyalty and a broken pension promise. Poirot clapped his gloved hands, the sound sharp in the hushed room. "Mes amis," he began, his Belgian accent crisp, "we are faced with a murder most ingenious. Lord Harrington was killed in a locked conservatory, a fortress of glass and iron, with no apparent means of entry or escape. The dagger, the blood on the canopy, the key in the lock, these are not accidents. Someone in this house has committed a crime, and Hercule Poirot shall uncover them through order and method." Inspector Japp, the local policeman, hovered nearby, his notepad scribbled with hasty notes. "Tricky business, Mr. Poirot," he muttered. "Could be a vagrant, perhaps, after those fancy orchids." Poirot's moustache twitched with disdain. "No, Inspector, this is no random act. The killer knew the manor, the conservatory, the man. We begin with questions." Poirot turned to Lady Amelia, his gaze gentle, but piercing. "Madame, you discovered the body. Tell me again of last night." Her voice trembled as she recounted retiring early with a headache, alone in her room. "I heard nothing until dawn, when I went to check the conservatory. Reginald sometimes worked there late." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but Poirot noted a flicker of calculation. A red herring surfaced. A maid tidying the library had found a crumpled letter in the waste bin, addressed to Lady Amelia, hinting at an affair with Black. "My dear, leave him. We can be free. It read, unsigned. Amelia flushed, denying it. "It's a lie! Someone forged it to ruin me." Poirot pocketed the letter, suspecting a plant to deflect suspicion, a classic misdirection. Next, he questioned Victor Black, whose alibi of wandering the halls due to insomnia was vague. "I saw no one," Black insisted, his gold pocket watch clicking as he toyed with it. Poirot pressed. "You were seen near the conservatory door at 11, monsieur." Black's jaw tightened. "A mistake. I was in the west wing." A servant's testimony contradicted him, placing Black's motive, control of the company, in sharper focus. Poirot's grey cells noted the inconsistency, but was it truth or another red herring? Evelyn Carlyle, her voice quavering, admitted her argument with her uncle over her allowance. "I was upset, yes, but I'd never harm him." The torn handkerchief found near the body bore her monogram, but she swore she'd lost it days ago. Someone must have taken it. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The handkerchief was too convenient, perhaps placed to frame her. Her motive, disinheritance over her artist lover, was strong, but her distress seemed genuine. Dr. Langley, questioned next, confirmed giving Evelyn a sedative for her migraine, claiming he retired afterward. His nervous fidgeting betrayed him, and Poirot probed, "Your medical bag, doctor. Might it contain something unusual?" Langley bristled. "Just standard supplies." Yet a vial of sedative, stronger than needed, raised Poirot's suspicions, a false clue, perhaps, or a hint of poison. Langley's motive, financial ruin from Harrington's refusals, loomed large. Simmons, the butler, was last, his answers measured. "I was in my quarters, sir, as always." His loyalty was unquestioned, but Poirot recalled the broken pension promise. A search of Simmons' room revealed a cryptic note. "Meet me at midnight, conservatory." Unsigned, it suggested complicity, but Simmons claimed ignorance. "Someone slipped it under my door." Another red herring? Or a key to the puzzle? Poirot moved to the conservatory, examining the scene with meticulous care. The blood on the glass canopy, high above, puzzled him. Too far for a simple stab unless thrown, an improbable feat. The shattered pots suggested a struggle, but the soft earth showed no stray footprints. A new clue emerged. A small brass key, hidden beneath the ferns, roots, not matching the conservatory door, but perhaps another lock in the manor. Black, questioned again, admitted it resembled one from his office, raising suspicions of tampering. But was it planted? Outside, Poirot questioned Mr. Thorne, the gardener, who lingered near the conservatory's exterior. "I tend the plants, that's all," Thorne grunted, his hands caked with soil. His resentment over Harrington selling estate land for profit was clear, but his alibi, working in the greenhouse shed, held for now. Yet his intimate knowledge of the conservatory's layout intrigued Poirot. The anonymous letters Harrington had mentioned, "Your greed will be your end," gnawed at Poirot's mind. A handwriting sample from each suspect revealed nothing conclusive, but Simmons' precise script bore a faint similarity. A red herring or a deliberate frame? Poirot set a trap, casually mentioning a missing diary of Harrington's to gauge reactions. Black's eyes flickered, Evelyn paled, and Langley adjusted his spectacles, a clue to their secrets perhaps. As the day wore on, the manor's atmosphere grew heavier, the mist outside thickening like a shroud. Poirot gathered the suspects again, his voice calm but resolute. "The truth. It hides in the details. The key, the letter, the handkerchief. Someone has woven a web, but it shall unravel." He noted their reactions. Lady Amelia's clenched fists, Black's forced smile, Evelyn's trembling lip, Langley's averted gaze, Simmons's rigid posture. The conservatory, with its blood-streaked canopy, held the answer, and Poirot's methodical mind was closing in. Chapter 5. Clues and Red Herrings. The mist hung heavy over Harrington Manor on that second morning of October 1927, cloaking the English countryside in a veil of secrets. The glass conservatory, its reinforced canopy gleaming like a frozen spectre, stood as the silent heart of the mystery. A locked room where Lord Reginald Harrington had met his end, stabbed with his own antique dagger. The door bolted from within, the key in the lock, and no trace of entry or exit. Hercule Poirot, his pinstriped suit immaculate and his waxed moustache a perfect curve, moved through the manor with the precision of a metronome, his jet-black eyes missing nothing. The murder was a puzzle of exquisite complexity, and his little grey cells thrived on such challenges. In the drawing-room, the suspects gathered under Poirot's watchful gaze, their faces etched with unease. Lady Amelia Harrington sat by the fire, her black mourning dress stark against her pale skin, her auburn hair tightly pinned. Her strained marriage and dwindling inheritance cast a shadow over her tearful facade. Mr. Victor Black, the ambitious business partner, leaned against a bookcase, his sharp features taut, his motive, control of Harrington's trade empire, clear as day. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the young niece, twisted her beaded bracelet, her emerald eyes flickering with fear. Her threatened disinheritance over a scandalous affair was motive enough. Dr. Harold Langley, the physician, adjusted his frayed tweed jacket, his spectacles glinting as he avoided Poirot's gaze, his resentment over unpaid bills and a rejected loan a festering wound. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, stood by the door, his silver hair gleaming, his stoic mask barely concealing the sting of a broken pension promise. Poirot clasped his gloved hands, his voice calm but commanding. Mes amis, the crime in the conservatory is no simple matter. The locked door, the blood on the canopy, the dagger, these are pieces of a tapestry woven with cunning. We must separate the truth from the lies, the clues from the red herrings. Inspector Japp, hovering with his notepad, nodded eagerly, though his bumbling demeanour suggested he relied on Poirot's genius. The investigation deepened as Poirot revisited the conservatory, its air thick with the scent of earth and blood. The blood-splattered canopy, high above, remained a puzzle, too far for a simple stab, suggesting a struggle or an improbable throw. The shattered pots near Harrington's body hinted at chaos, but the undisturbed soil bore no stray footprints. Poirot's keen eyes caught a new clue, a rare orchid, its blood-red petals trampled, as if someone had stumbled through the flower-bed. The gardener, Mr. Thorne, was summoned. "That's my Borneo orchid," he growled, his weathered face darkening. "Took years to cultivate. Someone's been careless." His resentment over Harrington selling estate land for profit was noted, but his alibi, tending the greenhouse shed, held for now. Was the trampled plant a clue to Thorne's involvement, or a distraction? Poirot turned to the suspect's alibis, probing for cracks. Lady Amelia's claim of retiring early with a headache wavered when a maid reported hearing her voice in the library near 11. "I may have fetched a book," Amelia stammered, her eyes darting. The forged letter found earlier, hinting at her affair with Black, was re-examined. Its ink matched a pen in the drawing-room, accessible to all. A red herring, Poirot suspected, designed to frame her, but by whom? Victor Black's insomnia alibi faltered further. A footman confirmed seeing him near the conservatory door at 11:30, contradicting his claim of wandering the west wing. I was restless, nothing more, Black snapped, his gold pocket watch clicking nervously. Poirot uncovered another clue. A small brass key, found beneath a fern in the conservatory, matched one Black kept for his office safe. Lost it weeks ago, Black insisted, but his flushed cheeks suggested otherwise. Was the key a vital link, or planted to mislead? Evelyn Carlyle's torn handkerchief, found near the body, was explained. I lent it to Uncle days ago. He admired the lace. Her story held, but her nervous glances at Black raised questions. Was she protecting someone, or herself? Her motive, disinheritance over her artist lover, remained strong, but Poirot sensed her fear was genuine. A new red herring emerged, a bloody glove, stuffed behind a bookshelf in Dr. Langley's room. Too small for his hands, but suspiciously placed. "I've never seen it," Langley protested, his voice cracking. The glove's blood matched Harrington's, but its obvious placement screamed misdirection, perhaps too obvious. Simmons, the butler, faced scrutiny over the cryptic note found in his quarters. "Meet me at midnight, conservatory." He claimed it was slipped under his door, but its handwriting bore a faint resemblance to his own precise script. "I'm no forger," he said stiffly, but Poirot noted his hands trembled slightly. The anonymous letters threatening Harrington, "Your greed will be your end," were compared again. Simmons's script was close, but not conclusive. Was he being framed, or was he playing a deeper game? Poirot set a subtle trap, mentioning a missing ledger from Harrington's study, watching for reactions. Black's eyes narrowed. Evelyn clutched her bracelet, and Langley coughed nervously. Amelia alone remained composed, but her stillness felt calculated. The ledger, a fiction, stirred unease, suggesting hidden financial motives. Poirot then examined the conservatory's door. The bolt showed faint scratches, as if tampered with, but the key in the lock was untouched. A duplicate key, perhaps? The brass key from Black's office didn't fit, deepening the mystery. Outside, a storm brewed, thunder rumbling as the manor felt increasingly like a cage. Poirot questioned Thorne again, noting his intimate knowledge of the conservatory's plants. "Any way to enter besides the door?" Poirot asked. Thorne shook his head. "Canopy's solid, no vents, no cracks." Yet Poirot's gaze lingered on the glass above, the blood splatter taunting him. Was it a clue to the method, or another red herring? The investigation revealed complications. A servant overheard Evelyn and Black whispering in the hall, hinting at a shared secret. "We must be careful," Black had said. Was it collusion or misdirection? Langley's medical bag contained a vial of sedative stronger than needed for Evelyn's migraine, but tests showed no poison in Harrington's body. Another false lead. The trampled orchid suggested Thorne's involvement, but his shed held no incriminating tools. Each clue seemed to point everywhere and nowhere, a hallmark of a cunning killer. Poirot gathered the suspects again, his voice measured. The web grows tangled, but the truth lies in the details. The glove, the key, the orchid. Someone has played a clever game, but Hercule Poirot is not so easily deceived. Their reactions, Amelia's clenched jaw, Black's forced calm, Evelyn's trembling hands, Langley's averted eyes, Simmons's rigid stance, were threads in the tapestry he would unravel. Chapter 6. Deepening. Shadows. The second day at Harrington Manor dawned under a sky bruised with storm clouds, the English countryside lashed by a gathering tempest that mirrored the turmoil within the estate's ivy-clad walls. The glass conservatory, its reinforced canopy glistening with rain, stood as the enigmatic heart of the mystery. A locked room where Lord Reginald Harrington had been found stabbed. His own antique dagger buried in his chest, the door bolted from within, the key in the lock, and no trace of entry or exit through the unyielding glass or undisturbed soil. Hercule Poirot, his pinstriped suit pristine and his waxed moustache a perfect arc, moved through the manor with quiet purpose, his jet-black eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. The clues, torn handkerchiefs, forged letters, bloody gloves, were a tapestry of deception, and his little grey cells were weaving them together. In the library, where the heavy oak door to the conservatory loomed, Poirot gathered the suspects, their faces drawn under the weight of suspicion. Lady Amelia Harrington sat by a rain-streaked window, her black mourning dress absorbing the dim light, her auburn hair pinned tightly. Her strained marriage and dwindling inheritance made her a figure of intrigue, her alibi of a headache increasingly shaky. Mr. Victor Black, the business partner, paced restlessly, his sharp features etched with tension. His ambition to seize control of Harrington's trade empire was a motive as clear as the storm outside. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the young niece, clutched her beaded bracelet, her emerald eyes shadowed with fear. Her threatened disinheritance over a scandalous affair with an artist gnawed at her. Dr. Harold Langley, the physician, fidgeted with his spectacles, his frayed tweed jacket a testament to his financial woes, his resentment over unpaid bills and a rejected loan ever present. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, stood rigidly by the door, his silver hair catching the lamplight, his broken pension promise a silent wound. Poirot clasped his gloved hands, his voice steady, but charged with authority. Mes amis, the murder of Lord Harrington is a puzzle of exquisite cunning. The locked conservatory, the blood on the canopy, the dagger, these demand answers. But now the shadows deepen, and new secrets emerge. We must probe further. Inspector Japp, his notepad damp from the storm, nodded, content to let Poirot lead. The investigation took a darker turn as the storm trapped the household, the manor's walls closing in like a vice. Poirot began with a startling discovery. A groundskeeper reported spotting a stranger near the estate's edge, a young man dishevelled and furtive, hiding in the stables. Under questioning, Evelyn broke down, tears streaming. It's James, my artist. He came to see me, but he's no killer. James, her penniless lover, was brought in, his paint-stained hands trembling. He admitted sneaking onto the grounds to persuade Evelyn to elope, but swore he never entered the manor, let alone the conservatory. I was in the stables all night. His presence added a complication. Had he acted to protect Evelyn's inheritance, or was he another red herring? Poirot noted his earnestness but reserved judgment. Lady Amelia's alibi wavered further. A footman overheard her arguing with Harrington in the library near midnight, not long before his estimated time of death. You're ruining us, she'd hissed, according to the servant. Confronted, Amelia paled. It was about finances, nothing more. But her voice cracked, and Poirot's eyes narrowed. The forged letter hinting at her affair with Black, found crumpled in the library, resurfaced. A chemist's analysis, arranged by Japp, revealed the ink was fresh, penned within days, and matched a pen in Black's possession. I keep pens in the study. Anyone could use them, Black protested, but the connection tightened the noose around their motives. Black's own secrets unravelled. A search of his room uncovered forged documents, share certificates suggesting he'd manipulated Harrington's company records to siphon profits. "These are old, irrelevant," Black insisted. But the papers, dated weeks prior, hinted at a deeper scheme. Was this the motive for murder, or a planted distraction? Poirot found a smudged fingerprint on the documents, not Black's, but suspiciously similar to Simmons. Another thread in the web. Evelyn's handkerchief found near the body was re-examined. She insisted Harrington had borrowed it days earlier, and a maid corroborated he admired the lace, kept it in his pocket. The clue seemed less damning, but Poirot wondered if it was planted to shift blame. A new complication arose. Evelyn admitted whispering with Black in the hall, as overheard by a servant. "He was warning me to stay quiet about James," she said, her voice trembling. "Collusion or coercion?" Black's sharp glance at her suggested more than business rivalry. Dr. Langley's nervous demeanour drew Poirot's focus. The bloody glove in his room, too small for his hands, was tested. The blood was Harrington's, but the glove's stitching matched none in the manner. "Someone placed it there," Langley insisted, his spectacles fogging with panic. His medical bag revealed another vial of sedative, but tests confirmed no poison in Harrington's system. A false lead, but why? Langley's motive, financial ruin, grew sharper when Poirot uncovered a letter from Harrington, refusing his loan request with cruel bluntness. "You've bled me enough." Simmons faced renewed scrutiny over the cryptic note in his quarters. "Meet me at midnight, conservatory." A handwriting expert, summoned by Japp, found similarities to the anonymous letters threatening Harrington, but the match wasn't conclusive. Simmons admitted receiving the note, but swore he never went to the conservatory. "I thought it was a prank," he said, his stoic mask slipping. Poirot's trap, a fictional missing ledger, yielded reactions. Black's clenched jaw, Evelyn's gasp, Langley's cough. Simmons alone remained impassive, but his stillness felt rehearsed. Poirot returned to the conservatory, the rain drumming on the glass canopy like a heartbeat. The trampled orchid, noted earlier, suggested a struggle, but the soil remained undisturbed beyond the pots. The blood splatter on the canopy, too high for a simple stab, intrigued him. He tested a theory. Could the dagger have been thrown? A trial with a similar blade proved it impossible in the confined space. The brass key, found under a fern, matched no lock in the manor, deepening the mystery. Was it a deliberate misdirection, or a clue to a hidden mechanism? The storm intensified, lightning illuminating the conservatory's blood-streaked panes. Poirot questioned Mr. Thorne, the gardener, again. "Any secret entries?" he asked. Thorne shook his head, rain dripping from his cap. "That canopy's solid as stone." Yet his knowledge of the plants, some toxic, raised suspicions. A crushed leaf, found near the body, contained a mild sedative, but not enough to kill. Another red herring? Or a hint of method? As tensions rose, the suspects turned on each other. Evelyn accused Black of manipulating her. "You knew about James," Black retorted. "You're hiding more than you admit." Amelia watched in silence, her composure a mask. Langley muttered about debts, and Simmons retreated into stoicism. Poirot observed, his mind weaving the threads. The lover's presence, the forged shares, the glove, the note. The locked room was a puzzle, but the human heart was the key. Chapter 7. Complications and Twists. The storm that battered Harrington Manor on the second night of October 1927 was a tempest of biblical proportions, its howling winds and lashing rain turning the English countryside into a maelstrom. The glass conservatory, its reinforced canopy shimmering under lightning's glare, remained the enigmatic heart of the mystery. A locked room where Lord Reginald Harrington had been found dead, stabbed with his own antique dagger. The door bolted from within, the key in the lock, and no trace of entry or exit through the unyielding glass or undisturbed soil. Hercule Poirot, his pinstriped suit pristine despite the chaos, paced the library with the precision of a metronome, his jet-black eyes gleaming with purpose. His waxed moustache twitched as his little grey cells wrestled with a growing tangle of clues. Forged letters, bloody gloves, trampled orchids and cryptic notes. The suspects, confined by the storm, gathered in the drawing room, their nerves frayed like the manor's ancient tapestries. Lady Amelia Harrington sat rigidly, her black mourning dress a stark contrast to her pale face, her auburn hair pinned with strained precision. Her crumbling marriage and dwindling inheritance fueled suspicion, her alibi of a headache increasingly porous. Mr. Victor Black, the ambitious business partner, stood by the fire, his sharp features shadowed, his motive, control of Harrington's trade empire, burning brightly. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the young niece, twisted her beaded bracelet, her emerald eyes clouded with fear. Her threatened disinheritance over her artist lover James hung heavily. Dr. Harold Langley, the physician, fidgeted with his spectacles, his frayed tweed jacket betraying his financial desperation, his resentment over unpaid bills and a rejected loan, a festering wound. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, stood by the door, his silver hair catching the lamplight, his broken pension promise a silent grievance. Poirot clapped his gloved hands, the sound cutting through the room's tension. "Mes amis," he declared, his Belgian accent sharp. "The murder in the conservatory grows more complex. The locked door, the blood on the canopy, the dagger, these are but the surface. Tonight, new truths emerge, and the web tightens." Inspector Japp, his rain-soaked coat dripping, nodded, his notepad filled with scribbles, but his faith in Poirot unwavering. The investigation took a sharp turn with a startling complication. A search of the library revealed a hidden panel in the floor, concealed beneath a Persian rug near the conservatory door. The panel, part of an old smuggling tunnel from the manor's 18th century past, led to a narrow passage beneath the estate. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he examined it, the wood worn but the hinges oiled, suggesting recent use. "A secret way," he murmured, "but to where?" The tunnel ended in a collapsed section, too narrow for escape, yet its existence raised questions. Had the killer used it to enter the conservatory undetected? Japp's men found no footprints, but a faint scuff mark suggested movement. A new clue, or another red herring? Lady Amelia's alibi crumbled further. A housemaid, trembling under Poirot's gentle questioning, admitted seeing Amelia in the library at midnight, not arguing, but pacing near the conservatory door. "She seemed distressed," the maid whispered. Confronted, Amelia's composure cracked. "I was checking on Reginald's work. He often stayed late." Her voice shook, and Poirot noted her hands clenched tightly. The forged letter hinting at her affair with Black was re-examined. A smudge of her perfume suggested she'd handled it, but she swore it was a lie. "Someone wants me blamed." Was she a victim of a frame, or a cunning player? Victor Black's forged share certificates, uncovered earlier, took on new weight. A ledger from Harrington's study, found locked in a safe, showed discrepancies in Black's accounts, profits siphoned to an offshore contact. "These are fabrications," Black snapped, his gold pocket watch clicking nervously. But the ledger's ink was old, the entries meticulous, suggesting Black's motive was not just ambition but desperation, to cover fraud. A new twist. The brass key, previously found under a fern, matched a safe in Black's office, not the conservatory. Had he planted it to deflect suspicion, or was someone framing him? Evelyn Carlyle's lover, James, complicated matters further. Under Poirot's probing, he admitted sneaking into the manor's grounds to meet Evelyn, but swore he never approached the conservatory. "I hid in the stables, waiting for her signal." A stable boy confirmed seeing him, but a muddy boot print near the conservatory's exterior matched James's shoes. "I walked the grounds, yes, but not there," he protested. Evelyn's tears flowed as she defended him, but Poirot wondered, was James a protective lover, or a pawn in a larger scheme? Her whispered exchange with Black, "We must be careful," suggested a deeper connection, perhaps blackmail. Dr. Langley's medical bag yielded a new red herring, a vial labelled as a sedative, but containing a rare plant extract, potentially toxic. "It's for orchid care, not murder," Langley insisted, his spectacles fogging with panic. Tests confirmed the extract was harmless in small doses, matching the crushed leaf found near Harrington's body. A false clue, but cleverly placed. Langley's motive, financial ruin, grew sharper when Poirot found a second letter from Harrington, mocking Langley's begging for funds. The bloody glove in Langley's room, too small for his hands, was traced to a servant's wardrobe, suggesting a deliberate plant. "I'm being targeted," Langley cried, but his nervous cough betrayed him. Simmons, the butler, faced renewed scrutiny over the cryptic note, "Meet me at midnight, conservatory." A handwriting expert confirmed similarities to the anonymous letters threatening Harrington, but Simmons admitted a twist. "I wrote those letters, but under duress. Someone threatened my sister's family." He refused to name the blackmailer, his stoic mask cracking. Poirot's trap, a fictional missing ledger, yielded more. Simmons's eyes flickered when it was mentioned, hinting at knowledge of Harrington's finances. Was he a victim or a collaborator? Poirot returned to the conservatory, the rain drumming on the glass canopy like a warning. The blood splatter high above defied logic, too far for a stab unless propelled. He tested another theory. Could the dagger have been rigged to fall from the canopy? A search revealed a tiny vent, barely a foot wide, hidden in the canopy's frame, too small for entry, but enough for a tool or weapon. Yet no mechanism was found, and the idea collapsed. The secret panel, however, intrigued him. Its oiled hinges suggested recent use, but the collapsed tunnel blocked escape. Was it the killer's path, or a distraction? The storm's ferocity trapped the suspects, their accusations flying. Evelyn confronted Black. "You knew about James and used it against me." Black retorted, "You're not so innocent, girl." Amelia accused Langley of negligence, while Langley muttered about debts. Simmons retreated into silence, but his trembling hands spoke volumes. Poirot observed, his mind weaving the threads, the secret panel, the forged documents, the plant extract, the blackmail. The locked room was a puzzle, but human greed and fear were its key. Chapter 8. The Gathering Storm. The storm that engulfed Harrington Manor on the 3rd day of October 1927 was a relentless force, its winds shrieking like banshees, and its rain battering the estate's ivy-clad walls. The glass conservatory, its reinforced canopy glinting under lightning's glare, stood as the unyielding enigma of the mystery. A locked room where Lord Reginald Harrington had been found stabbed, his own antique dagger buried in his chest, the door bolted from within, the key in the lock, and no trace of entry or exit through the impervious glass or undisturbed soil. Hercule Poirot, his pinstriped suit immaculate despite the chaos, stood in the drawing room, his jet-black eyes gleaming with calculated intent. His waxed moustache twitched as his little grey cells wove together a tapestry of clues. Forged letters, bloody gloves, trampled orchids, secret panels, and cryptic notes. The suspects, trapped by the storm's fury, gathered under Poirot's watchful gaze, their nerves frayed like the manor's ancient curtains. Lady Amelia Harrington sat on a velvet settee, her black mourning dress absorbing the dim firelight, her auburn hair pinned with rigid precision. Her crumbling marriage and dwindling inheritance cast a long shadow, her alibi of a headache now riddled with holes. Mr. Victor Black, the ambitious business partner, leaned against the mantel, his sharp features taut with barely concealed agitation. His motive, control of Harrington's trade empire, burned fiercely. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the young niece, twisted her beaded bracelet until it threatened to snap, her emerald eyes darting with panic. Her threatened disinheritance over her artist lover, James, weighed heavily. Dr. Harold Langley, the physician, clutched his spectacles, his frayed tweed jacket a testament to his financial ruin, his resentment over unpaid bills and a rejected loan simmering. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, stood by the door, his silver hair catching the lamplight, his broken pension promise and coerced anonymous letters a silent wound. Poirot clapped his gloved hands, the sound sharp as a thunderclap. "Mes amis," he declared, his Belgian accent crisp with authority, "the murder in the conservatory is a masterpiece of deception. The locked door, the blood on the canopy, the dagger, these are but pieces of a greater puzzle. Tonight we stir the waters, and the truth shall rise." Inspector Japp, his rain-soaked coat dripping onto the rug, nodded eagerly, his notepad brimming, but his trust in Poirot absolute. Poirot's strategy was to set a trap, a calculated provocation to elicit reactions. He announced with deliberate nonchalance a new clue, a hidden journal of Lord Harrington's, found in the conservatory this morning, details his final suspicions. It names a betrayer. The journal was a fiction, a bait to unsettle the guilty. The suspect's reactions were telling. Lady Amelia's eyes widened, her hands clenching her dress. Black's jaw tightened, his fingers pausing on his gold pocket watch. Evelyn gasped softly, her bracelet slipping. Langley coughed, adjusting his spectacles nervously. Simmons remained statue-like, but a bead of sweat betrayed him. The trap sparked chaos. Evelyn, her voice trembling, turned on Black. "You knew about James, didn't you? You threatened to tell Uncle." Her accusation hung in the air, her lover's presence on the grounds a lingering complication. Black retorted sharply, "You're hiding your own secrets, girl. That handkerchief wasn't misplaced by chance." His words hinted at collusion, but his flushed cheeks suggested fear. Amelia interjected, her voice icy. "Enough, both of you. Victor, you've been scheming for years." Her accusation pointed to the forged share certificates which Poirot had uncovered, revealing Black's financial fraud. Black's denial was vehement. "Those papers are a frame. Someone wants me ruined." Langley, usually reserved, snapped at Amelia. "You're no saint, my lady. I heard you in the library plotting with someone." His accusation reignited doubts about Amelia's midnight presence near the conservatory door, her alibi crumbling further. Simmons, silent until now, spoke softly. "I served loyally, but secrets abound in this house." His cryptic remark drew Poirot's gaze. The butler's coerced letters, "Your greed will be your end," suggested a deeper role, perhaps as pawn or puppeteer. Poirot steered the investigation back to the conservatory, where the storm's lightning illuminated the blood-splattered canopy. The secret panel in the library floor, discovered earlier, was re-examined. A faint scratch on its hinges matched a tool in the gardener's shed, implicating Mr. Thorne. Questioned, Thorne growled, "I fixed that panel years ago for storage, never used it since." His resentment over Harrington's land sales was clear, but his alibi held. He was in the greenhouse during the murder. The panel's oiled hinges suggested recent use, but the collapsed tunnel beyond blocked escape. Was it the killer's path, or another misdirection? A new clue emerged. A tiny glass shard, found near the conservatory's door, embedded in the soil. It matched the canopy's material, but was too small for a breach. Poirot tested a theory. Could the blood splatter have been staged, flicked upward to mislead? An experiment with water and a similar dagger disproved it. The splatter's pattern was natural, tied to the struggle. The shard, however, hinted at tampering, perhaps a failed attempt to access the vent in the canopy's frame, noted earlier, but too small for entry. The forged letter implicating Amelia and Black resurfaced. A servant found a second letter, hidden in a book, urging Black to act before it's too late. The handwriting matched neither, but its tone echoed the anonymous threats. Black's protest, "I'm being framed," rang hollow when Poirot revealed the letter's paper matched stationery in his office. Amelia's perfume on the first letter suggested she'd handled it, but she claimed, "Someone stole my scent." A clever red herring or a sign of collusion? Evelyn's lover James was questioned again. His muddy bootprint near the conservatory was damning, but he insisted, "I wandered the grounds, not inside." A stable boy confirmed his presence in the stables, but only until 11. Evelyn's whispered exchange with Black, "We must be careful," took on new weight when Poirot found a note in her room. "Meet me at the gate, midnight." Was she planning to flee with James, or covering a darker deed? Langley's plant extract, mistaken for poison, was cleared. It matched the conservatory's orchids, harmless in small doses. But a new twist. His medical records showed Harrington had been healthy, contradicting Langley's claim of treating him for heart issues. A mix-up, Langley stammered. But his motive, financial desperation, grew sharper. Simmons's coerced letters were traced to a typewriter in the study, accessible to all, deepening the blackmail mystery. As accusations flew, a physical altercation erupted. Evelyn lunged at Black, accusing him of blackmailing her over James. Black shoved her back and Japp intervened. Poirot watched, his mind cataloguing. The trap had stirred guilt, fear, and rage. The conservatory's blood-streaked canopy loomed in his thoughts, its secrets close to unravelling. Chapter 9. The Revelation. The storm that had ravaged Harrington Manor for days began to wane on the third evening of October 1927, leaving a restless calm over the English countryside. The glass conservatory, its reinforced canopy now glistening under a clearing sky, remained the heart of the mystery. A locked room where Lord Reginald Harrington had been found stabbed, his own antique dagger buried in his chest. The door bolted from within, the key in the lock, and no trace of entry or exit through the impervious glass or undisturbed soil. Hercule Poirot, his pinstriped suit pristine and his waxed moustache perfectly symmetrical, stood in the drawing-room, his jet-black eyes gleaming with the certainty of truth. His little grey cells had unravelled the web of clues, forged letters, bloody gloves, trampled orchids, secret panels, and cryptic notes. And now the moment of revelation had arrived. The suspects gathered under Poirot's commanding gaze, their faces etched with dread and anticipation. Lady Amelia Harrington sat rigidly on a velvet settee, her black mourning dress stark against her pale skin, her auburn hair pinned tightly. Her crumbling marriage and dwindling inheritance marked her as a suspect. Mr. Victor Black, the ambitious business partner, stood by the mantel. His sharp features taut, his motive, control of Harrington's trade empire, undeniable. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the young niece, clutched her beaded bracelet, her emerald eyes wide with fear. Her threatened disinheritance over her artist lover James hung heavily. Dr. Harold Langley, the physician, fidgeted with his spectacles, his frayed tweed jacket a testament to his financial ruin, his resentment over unpaid bills and a rejected loan palpable. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, stood by the door, his silver hair catching the firelight, his broken pension promise and coerced anonymous letters a silent wound. Inspector Japp, his notepad worn from use, stood ready to act on Poirot's conclusions. Poirot clapped his gloved hands, the sound echoing like a gavel. "Mes amis," he began, his Belgian accent sharp with authority. "The murder of Lord Harrington in the locked conservatory is a puzzle of exquisite cunning. The bolted door, the blood on the canopy, the dagger, these were designed to deceive. But Hercule Poirot sees through the shadows. Tonight, the truth is revealed." He began by dismantling the red herrings. The torn handkerchief bearing Evelyn's monogram, found near the body, was a deliberate plant. Mademoiselle Carlyle lent it to her uncle days prior, Poirot explained, but someone placed it to frame her. Evelyn's gasp of relief was audible, but her lover James remained a question. His bootprint near the conservatory was explained. He wandered the grounds, seeking Mademoiselle, but never entered. A distraction, nothing more. The forged letter hinting at Lady Amelia's affair with Black was next. The letter, scented with Madame's perfume, was penned by another to sow discord, Poirot said, his eyes on Amelia's clenched hands. The ink matched a pen in the study, accessible to all, and the perfume was stolen from her dressing table. A clever misdirection, Poirot noted, but not the truth. The bloody glove in Dr. Langley's room, too small for his hands, was another plant. The blood was Harrington's, yes, but the glove came from a servant's wardrobe, placed to implicate the doctor. Langley's shoulders sagged, but his nervous cough lingered. The plant extract in his bag, mistaken for poison, was for orchid care, harmless, a false lid. The cryptic note in Simmons's quarters, "Meet me at midnight, conservatory," and his coerced anonymous letters were unravelled. Monsieur Simmons wrote under blackmail, Poirot revealed, but not for murder. His sister's family was threatened, a cruel manipulation. Simmons's stoic mask cracked, his eyes glistening. The brass key under the fern, the forged share certificates, the trampled orchid, all were distractions designed to cloud the truth. Even the secret panel in the library floor, with its oiled hinges, was a red herring. The panel led to a collapsed tunnel, Poirot said, used for storage, not escape. A clever suggestion of method, but false. Poirot paced, his voice rising. The killer relied on our belief in the impossible. The locked room, the sealed canopy. But the solution is simple, elegant, human. He turned to the blood splatter on the canopy, high above. The blood was not thrown, not staged. It was the result of a struggle, splattered naturally when the dagger struck. The true method, Poirot revealed, was a duplicate key. The conservatory's lock was tampered with, a second key crafted in secret. He produced a small, worn key, found hidden in a vase in the library. This key, made from a mold of the original, allowed entry and exit, the door rebolted to create the illusion of a locked room. Poirot's gaze settled on Dr. Harold Langley. "Monsieur le Docteur, you are the killer." The room gasped. Langley's spectacles slipped, his face paling. "You lie!" he cried, but Poirot raised a hand. "Your motive," Poirot continued, "was not just unpaid bills or a rejected loan. Harrington discovered your embezzlement from family funds, siphoning small sums over years to cover debts. He confronted you, threatened exposure. You acted to silence him. The method was meticulous. Langley, familiar with the manor, had access to the conservatory key during a medical visit. He crafted a duplicate, entering at midnight when Harrington worked late among his orchids. You stabbed him in a struggle, the blood splattering the canopy. You exited via the secret panel, which you knew from old manor records, locking the door with the duplicate key to preserve the illusion. The clues aligned. Langley's sedative to Evelyn ensured she slept, giving him time. His nervous demeanour, the planted glove to deflect suspicion, the false heart condition claim, all were his attempts to cover his tracks. The anonymous letters, coerced from Simmons, were Langley's ploy to sow chaos, masking his own motive. Langley's voice broke. He'd have ruined me, years of service, and he mocked me. His confession spilled forth, detailing his desperation, the stolen funds, the planned murder. Japp stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Poirot turned to the others. Madame Amelia, your marriage was strained, but you sought reconciliation. Monsieur Black, your fraud was real, but not murderous. Mademoiselle Evelyn, your love was reckless, but innocent. Monsieur Simmons, your loyalty was exploited, not broken. The room exhaled, relief mingling with shock. The conservatory's blood-streaked canopy, now bathed in moonlight, seemed to sigh as the truth emerged. Poirot's method, logic, observation, psychology, had triumphed over deception. Chapter 10. Justice Served. The morning of the fourth day at Harrington Manor, October 1927, dawned with a fragile calm, the storm that had battered the English countryside giving way to a golden sunrise. The glass conservatory, its reinforced canopy sparkling under the clear sky, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. A locked room where Lord Reginald Harrington had been found stabbed, his own antique dagger buried in his chest, the door bolted from within, the key in the lock, and no trace of entry or exit through the impervious glass or undisturbed soil. Hercule Poirot, his pinstriped suit pristine and his waxed moustache a perfect arc, stood in the drawing-room, his jet-black eyes serene yet triumphant. His little grey cells had unravelled the web of deception. Forged letters, bloody gloves, trampled orchids, secret panels, and cryptic notes. And the truth had been revealed. The killer, Dr. Harold Langley, was in custody, and the manor could breathe again. The suspects, now absolved or chastened, gathered one last time under Poirot's gaze, their faces a mix of relief, guilt, and exhaustion. Lady Amelia Harrington sat by the fire, her black mourning dress softened by a shawl, her auburn hair loosened slightly, her eyes weary from the ordeal. Her strained marriage and dwindling inheritance had cast suspicion, but her innocence was clear. Mr. Victor Black, the business partner, leaned against a bookcase, his sharp features softened by defeat. His ambition for Harrington's trade empire was tainted by fraud, but not murder. Miss Evelyn Carlyle, the young niece, sat with her hands still, her emerald eyes brighter now. Her threatened disinheritance over her artist lover James had been a motive, but her heart was pure. Mr. Edmund Simmons, the butler, stood by the door, his silver hair gleaming, his coerced role in the anonymous letters a burden lifted. Inspector Japp, his notepad finally closed, stood ready to escort Langley to justice. Poirot clasped his gloved hands, his voice calm but resonant. "Mes amis," he began, his Belgian accent rich with conviction. "The murder of Lord Harrington was a crime of cunning, designed to baffle with its locked room and tangled clues. But the truth, it is always simple when seen through the lens of logic and human nature. Let us now lay bare every thread, so that justice may be complete." He began with the method, addressing the locked room puzzle that had captivated all. "The conservatory was no fortress," Poirot explained. "Dr. Langley used a duplicate key, crafted from a mould of the original during a medical visit. He entered at midnight, when Harrington worked late among his orchids, stabbed him in a struggle, hence the blood on the canopy, and exited via the secret panel in the library floor, known to him from old manor records. He rebolted the door with the duplicate, leaving the original key in the lock to create the illusion of an impossible crime. The blood splatter on the canopy, high above, had been a natural result of the struggle, not a staged clue. The dagger struck with force, Poirot said, splashing blood upward as Harrington fought back, shattering pots and trampling the orchid. The tiny glass shard found near the door was a red herring, debris from a broken pot, not the canopy. The secret panel, with its oiled hinges, was the key to the method, though its collapsed tunnel ensured no escape beyond the library. Langley's knowledge of the manor's history, gained through years of service, had been his tool. Poirot turned to the red herrings, dismantling each with precision. The torn handkerchief bearing Evelyn's monogram, found near the body, was planted by Langley to frame her. He knew of her loan to Harrington, Poirot noted, and used it to sow suspicion. Evelyn's lover, James, was cleared. His boot print near the conservatory was from wandering the grounds, not entering. His love was reckless, but innocent, Poirot said, earning a tearful nod from Evelyn. The forged letter hinting at Lady Amelia's affair with Black was Langley's work, using stolen perfume and study ink to mislead. "Madame, your marriage was troubled, but your heart sought peace," Poirot said gently. Amelia's eyes glistened, her relief palpable. The bloody glove in Langley's room, too small for his hands, was another plant, sourced from a servant's wardrobe to deflect suspicion. "A clumsy attempt," Poirot remarked, "but it nearly succeeded." Simmons's coerced anonymous letters, "Your greed will be your end," were Langley's masterstroke. He blackmailed Monsieur Simmons, threatening his sister's family to create chaos and mask his own motive, Poirot revealed. Simmons bowed his head, his stoic mask gone. The cryptic note in Simmons' quarters, "Meet me at midnight, conservatory," was Langley's bait, ensuring Simmons stayed away, fearing exposure. Black's forged share certificates were real, but unrelated to the murder. "Monsieur Black, your fraud was uncovered, but it was not your hand that struck," Poirot said. Black's shoulders slumped, his ambition humbled. The brass key under the fern, matching Black's office safe, was another of Langley's plants, designed to implicate him. Langley's motive was laid bare. "Harrington discovered your embezzlement, small sums siphoned from family funds over years to cover debts. He threatened to expose you, ruin you. You killed to silence him." Langley, now in handcuffs, glared but said nothing. His confession from the previous night, elicited by Poirot's trap of a fictional journal, still ringing in the room. "He mocked me," Langley had cried. "Years of service, and he'd cast me out." Poirot addressed the final clues. The trampled orchid was collateral damage from the struggle, not a deliberate clue. The plant extract in Langley's bag, mistaken for poison, was for orchid care, a misdirection Langley exploited. The tiny vent in the Canopy's frame, too small for entry, was a red herring Poirot himself had tested and dismissed. "The killer relied on our belief in the impossible," Poirot said, but logic prevailed. The household exhaled as justice settled. Amelia, freed from suspicion, vowed to restore the estate's finances. Black, chastened, agreed to cooperate with authorities on his fraud. Evelyn embraced her lover James, her inheritance secure. Simmons, his loyalty vindicated, was promised a pension by Amelia. The conservatory, its blood-streaked canopy now cleaned, stood as a monument to truth uncovered. Poirot prepared to depart, his suitcase packed, his moustache twitching with satisfaction. "The little grey cells, they do not fail," he said to Japp, who grinned. "You're a marvel, Poirot." As he stepped into the waiting Rolls-Royce, the manor's silhouette faded into the morning mist, its secrets laid bare.